If you're lying flat on the mat, maybe place one hand on your belly and one hand on your heart. And just slowly take notice of the natural rhythm of your breath. Maybe start to slowly make your inhales just a little longer, trying to fill completely up through your belly, through your lungs, and completely expanding out through your chest. Maybe pausing before you slowly exhale all the way out, hollowing out through your belly. While you're trying to deepen your inhales and exhales, just take notice if at any point while you're inhaling you feel any restrictions or resistance. Just try to invite your breath in a little further up through your body. On your next inhale, go ahead. If you're seated, you can come down to lying on your mat. If you're lying down on your mat, go ahead and lift your arms overhead, stretch out through your toes. Maybe start to point and flex your toes. Remembering to breathe. Wakening up your body, moving in whatever way feels good for you. And then hug both knees into your chest. Just take a moment to pause here. Feel the weight of your body pressing into the mat. And inhale, extend both feet to the ceiling. Your hands can come down by your hips. Take a moment to pause here. And slowly start to lower your right leg down to the mat. Don't let your heel touch the mat, just let it hover. And then let it come back up to meet your left foot. Go with the rhythm of your breath. It doesn't matter, you can lower your foot on your inhale or your exhale and then rise on the opposite. So let's go ahead and do that same thing with our left leg. Go ahead and lower all the way down. Let your left foot hover and then bring it back up to meet your right. One more time, let's let our right leg lower. Let it just hover and then lift it back up to meet your left. One more time, lower down on the left side And then slowly let it back up to meet your right. Pausing at the top. You can hug your knees into your chest. We just worked our core, so you might feel a little tension there. Maybe you would like to rock side to side. And then extend both feet up towards the sky. You can point and flex your toes. Maybe circle your feet in one direction and then rotate them in the opposite direction. And then pause here. Take your right leg, cross it over your left, hug both knees in towards your chest, try to stack your knees, reach around and grab for your ankles or your shins. Try to gently pull your ankles towards your hips, making sure you consciously try to keep your hips even. Just take a few slow, deep breaths here. You should feel this in your outer right hip. And just try to soften in. Take 2 more slow, deep breaths. And then uncross your legs, hug both knees into your chest. Pause here. And extend both feet up towards the sky. Cross your left leg over your right like you're sitting in a chair. Stack your knees, hug both legs in towards your chest, reach around and grab for your shins or your ankles. Take a few slow, deep breaths here. Readjust if you need. Just don't grab for your feet because you could injure yourself if you pull hard on your feet in this position. So keep your hands on your ankles or your shins. Breathe into the stretch in your left hip. Stay here for 2 more cycles of breath. And release your legs, hug both knees in towards your chest. Maybe place your hands on your knees and just rotate your hips and knees in one direction. And then pause. And then rotate in the opposite direction. And come back to stillness. Hug both knees into your chest. Take one more deep inhale here. And make your way over to hands and knees or tabletop position. Make sure your wrists are in line with your shoulders, knees are in line with your hips. Fingers are spread out wide. Your pointer fingers are pointing towards the top of your mat. Just take a moment to pause here. Find your breath. And on your inhale, start to look over your right shoulder, looking over towards your right hip, squeezing into the right side body. Stay here for one more slow, deep breath. And come back to center. Inhale, slowly start to look over to the left side, over the left hip, squeezing into your left side body. And come back to center. Inhale, slowly look over to the right side, over your right hip, squeezing into the right side body. And come back to center. And one more time, look over to the left side. And come back to center. Pause here. And then slowly walk your arms out in front of you. Stretch your arms out. We're coming into puppy dog pose. You can slowly lower your forehead or chin to the mat. You can continue to stretch your fingers out in front of you till you find a spot that works for you, consciously keeping your hips over your knees. Take a few slow, deep breaths here. And slowly rise up, walk your hands back, come into tabletop. And pause here. Step your right foot behind you. Toes are curled under. Your right leg is straight. Take an inhale and a deep exhale. And then on your next inhale, slowly walk your right foot over towards the left side of your mat. Gaze over your right heel. Take a few slow, deep breaths here. And walk your right foot back to center. Pausing, and then bend your right knee, place it next to your left. Step your left foot back, toes curled under, heels straight up towards the ceiling. Take a moment to pause here. And then slowly walk your left foot over towards the right side of your mat, bringing your gaze over your left heel. Taking a moment to pause here, focusing in on your breath, and walk your foot back to center. And then bending your knee back to meet your right. Bring your knees out wide, big toes together, sink your hips down and back, come in to child's pose. Forehead can rest on the mat, hands can stretch out in front of you. Take a few slow, deep breaths here. And stretch your right arm overhead. Thread your right arm under your body. Rest your right cheek on the mat, gazing over your right fingers. Take a moment to feel the stretch in your right shoulder. And slowly rise up. Bring your arm under your body, stretch it out in front of you, sink back to child's pose. Extend your left arm overhead, thread your left arm under your body, bringing your left cheek to the mat, gaze over your left fingers. Soften into the stretch in your left shoulder. And stay here for one more slow, deep breath. And slowly rise up. Extend your left arm out in front of you. Sink your hips down and back. Come into child's pose. And slowly rise back up to tabletop. Spread your fingers out wide. Tuck your toes under. Lift your hips up and back. Come into down dog. On your inhale, try to straighten your arms. And on your exhale, slowly try to sink your heels lower to the mat. Lift your right leg high in the air. Exhale, thread it through for low lunge. Ground down through the soles of your feet and slowly rise up to high lunge. Extend your arms overhead, shoulders away from the ears. Try to draw your right hip back, left hip front. Keep your hips square. Anchor your left heel. Bring your arms out to a T. Gaze over your right fingers. Come into warrior two. Flip your front palm. Reverse your warrior. Slowly bring your arms back to warrior two. Straighten your front leg. Hinge at your hips. Slowly lower your right hand to your shin, the mat, or a block. Extend your left arm overhead. Gaze up over your left thumb. If this feels uncomfortable in your neck, you can look straight ahead of you. Take two more slow, deep breaths here. And slowly bend into your right knee. Keep your hand rooted down on the mat or a block. And slowly bring your left arm in line with your ear, coming into extended side angle. Take 2 more slow, deep breaths here. And with control, slowly bring your left arm behind you, root down through your right foot, reach your right arm up. Come into warrior two. Windmill your hands back down to frame your front foot. Spin off your back heel. Keep your left hand rooted down on the mat. You can bring your right hand to your hip. Slowly bring your right shoulder back, twist open to the right side. Hand can stay here on your hip or extend overhead. Remember to keep that left leg straight, heel pointing towards the sky. We're here for 2 more slow, deep breaths. And lower your right hand down to the mat. Step back to plank. You can come right into down dog if you'd like, or stay here in plank, or with control, slowly lower all the way down to the mat. Untuck your toes. Hands are under your shoulders. Ground down through the tops of your quads and your tops of your feet. And slowly peel your heart off the mat. Squeeze your shoulder blades together. Come into cobra. And lower all the way down to the mat. Tuck your toes, push back to down dog. Check in with your hands, make sure they're shoulder width apart. And pause here. Lift your left leg high in the air. Exhale, thread it through for low lunge. Ground down through the soles of your feet. Slowly rise up to high lunge. Keep your belly in and up. Shoulders melt away from the ears. And slowly anchor your right heel down. Bring your arms out to a T. Come into warrior two. Gaze over your left fingers. Flip your front palm. Reverse your warrior. Feel the stretch in your left side body. Try to keep a 90-degree angle in your left leg. And slowly bring your arms back up to warrior two. Start to straighten your left leg. Hinge at your hips. Bring your left hand down to your shin, the mat or a block. Stretch your right arm overhead. Gaze over your right thumb. Keep your shoulder rolling down your back, heart open. Stay with me for 2 more slow, deep breaths. And start to bend into your left knee, keeping your hand rooted down on the mat or a block. Extend your right arm overhead, bringing it in line with your ear. Come into extended side angle. Take 2 more slow, deep breaths here. And lead with your right arm, bring it behind you, ground down through your left foot, and slowly rise back up to warrior two. Take a pause here. Windmill your hands back down to frame your front foot. Spin off your back heel. Keep your right hand rooted down on the mat. Extend your left arm overhead. Or you can keep it here on your hip. Make sure you're pulling that left shoulder back, twisting open to the left side. Straightening through your right leg. We're here for 2 more slow, deep breaths. And lower your left hand back down to the mat. Plant your hands and step back to plank. You have the option to go right into down dog here, or lower down, come into cobra or up dog. Exhale back to down dog. Take a few slow, deep breaths here. And walk your hands to your feet, feet to your hands, and bow forward. Make sure your feet have your weight evenly distributed through the 4 corners. Your sit bones are spread wide. You're folding over your legs. If you need to, you can keep a micro bend in your knees. Inhale, bring your hands to your shins, spine long, halfway lift. Exhale, fold forward. Inhale, reach your arms overhead. Exhale, bring your hands to heart center. Pause here. Inhale, lift your arms overhead. Exhale, swan dive forward. Inhale, hands to shin, spine long, halfway lift. Exhale, fold forward. Inhale, reach your arms overhead. Exhale, bring your hands to heart center. Bring your big toes together. Leave a little space between your heels. Sink your hips down and back, come into chair pose. Raise your arms overhead. Bring your shoulders away from the ears. Pause here. And fold forward. Inhale, hands to shin, spine long, halfway lift. Exhale, plant your hands, step back to down dog. Take a pause here. And inhale, reach your right leg high in the air. Exhale, thread it through for low lunge. Pause here. And then step your left foot up to meet your right. Fold forward. Inhale, hands to shin, spine long, halfway lift. Exhale, fold forward. Inhale, reach your arms overhead. Exhale, bring your hands to heart center. Inhale, reach your arms overhead. Exhale, fold forward. Inhale, hands to shin, spine long, halfway lift. Exhale, plant your hands down. Step your left foot back. Pause here. Step your right foot back, come into plank. Take a moment to decide here if you're going to lower down or just come into down dog. So if you're going to lower down, lower all the way down. Come into cobra or up dog. Push back to down dog. Pause here. Inhale your left leg high in the air. Exhale, thread it through for low lunge. Pause here. And then step your right foot up to meet your left and bow forward. Inhale, hands to shin, spine long, halfway lift. Exhale, fold forward. Inhale, arms up overhead. Exhale, swan dive forward. Inhale, hands to shin, spine long, halfway lift. Exhale, plant your palms down, step your right foot back, come into low lunge. Pause here and step your left foot back to plank. You have the option to come right into a down dog, or you can take a vinyasa. So lower all the way down, come into cobra or up dog, and push back to down dog. And pause here. Inhale, reach your right leg high in the air. Exhale, thread it through for low lunge. Ground down through the soles of your feet. Slowly rise up to high lunge. Extend your arms overhead. Shoulders away from the ears. Keep your hips square. Anchor your left heel down. Sink into your right knee, come into warrior two. Pause here. Slowly start to straighten your right leg. Hinge at your hips. Bring your right hand down to your shin or the mat. Come in to Trikonasana or triangle pose. Take a pause here. And then slowly bend into your right knee. Bring your right hand forward. Step forward. Plant your right hand down. Extend your left leg out long. Open your hip to the left side. Flex your foot. Hands here at your hip, or you can extend your left arm overhead. Come into half moon. Stand tall through the right leg. Keep that left foot lifted. And here comes the challenge. Lower your left hand down to the mat. Spin your left foot down, closing your left hip. And slowly try to lift up into warrior three. Extend that left foot behind you. Your arms can come out to airplane wings. Pull that left heel up towards the sky, opening through the heart. Stay here for 2 more slow, deep breaths. And then slowly lower your left foot down to the mat. Inhale, reach your arms overhead. Exhale, bring your hands to heart center. Take a moment here to pause, notice your breath. And bring your hands back down to your sides. Inhale, lift your arms overhead. Exhale, swan dive forward. Inhale, hands to shin, spine long, halfway lift. Exhale, fold forward, plant your hands, step back to down dog. Check in with your hands. Make sure your pointer fingers are pointing towards the top of your mat. Feet are hip width apart. Inhale, lift your left leg high in the air. Exhale, thread it through for low lunge. Ground down through the soles of your feet. Slowly rise up to high lunge. Extend your arms overhead, shoulders away from the ears. Pull your belly in and up. And anchor your right heel down. Sink into your left knee. Come into warrior two. Take a pause here. And then slowly start to straighten your left leg. Hinge at your hips. Lower your left hand to your shin or the mat. Extend your arm overhead, your right arm overhead. Take a moment to settle in here. Keep that right shoulder blade rolling down your back. And then slowly start to bend into your left knee. Bring your left hand out in front of you, about a foot in front of your left foot. Your thumb should be in line with your pinky toe. Plant your left hand down. You can bring your right hand to your hip. Spin your right hip open to the right side. Flex your right foot. Your hand can stay at your hip or extend overhead. Come into half moon. Try to root down through your left foot. And slowly bring your right hand back down to the mat. Spin your right hip closed. And slowly try to lift up through your torso. Come into warrior three. Bring your arms to airplane arms. Try to lift up through your right heel. Stay with me for 2 more slow, deep breaths. And lower your right foot back down to the mat. Come into mountain pose. Take a moment to pause here. Lift your arms overhead. Exhale, fold forward. Inhale, hands to shins, spine long, halfway lift. Exhale, plant your palms down. Step back to down dog. Pause here. Find your breath. And inhale, reach your right leg high in the air. Exhale, place your right foot on the outside edge of your right hand. Make sure your right foot is parallel to the long side of your mat. You have the option to stay here, or you can drop your left knee down and untuck your left toes. Feel the stretch in your left psoas, or your left hip flexor. You should feel a deep stretch here. Take a few slow, deep breaths. You can gaze over your left shoulder. Just make sure your left toes are straight back, that your foot is not sickling in. And then slowly start to sink your hips back, straighten your right leg, and bow forward. Feel the stretch in your right hamstring. And then slowly start to bend into your right knee, come forward, feeling the stretch in your right hip flex, or your left hip flexor. Pause here. And slowly sink your hips down and back, straighten your right leg, bow forward. And And bend into your right knee, come forward. Keep your left hand rooted down on the mat. Turn to the right side. Extend your right arm overhead. Take a few slow, deep breaths here. And bring your right hand back down to the mat. Tuck your left toes under, lift your left knee off the mat. Step back to down dog. Take a few slow, deep breaths here. And extend your left leg high in the air. Place your left foot on the outside edge of your left hand. Drop your right knee, or you can keep it up to you. Drop your right knee down, untuck your right toes. Make sure your left foot is parallel to the long side of your mat. You can gaze over your right shoulder, make sure your foot isn't sickling in. Feel the stretch in your right hip flexor. Take a pause here. And slowly sink your hips back, straighten your left leg, bow forward. Feel the stretch in your left hamstring. Stay here for a few slow, deep breaths. And slowly bend into your left knee. Straighten out through your right leg. Pause here. And slowly start to sink your hips back, straighten your left leg, bow forward. And bend into your left knee, come up to your straight arms. Tuck your right toes under, lift your right knee off the mat, step back to down dog. And pause here. We're here for 5 slow, deep breaths. And lower your knees down to the mat. Come back into tabletop. Take a pause here. And make your way into a seated position. Ground down through your sits bones. Sit up nice and tall. Bring your right hand down by your right hip and slowly stretch your left arm overhead, bringing it in line with your ear. Feel the stretch in your left side body. Gaze can be straight out in front of you, or you can lift your head up towards the ceiling. Stay with me for 3 more slow, deep breaths. And slowly rise back up. Place your left hand next to your left hip. Ground down through your left palm. Slowly start to stretch your right arm overhead in line with your ear. Feel the stretch in your right side body. Again, you can gaze forward or up towards the sky. And slowly come back up to center. Extend your legs out wide. Take your hands on your thighs and slowly just start to rotate your thighs towards the back of your mat. Flex your feet. Make sure you're grounded down through your sits bones. Shoulders back, sit up nice and tall. Inhale, reach your arms overhead. Exhale, lower down. Bring your hands down in front of you to touch the mat. Stay here for a few slow, deep breaths. And slowly walk your hands back up towards your body. Sit up nice and tall. Bring your legs together. Plant your feet on the mat. Knees point towards the sky. Slowly lower all the way down to a supine position. Bring your knees in towards your chest, making them into a 90-degree angle. Bring your arms out to a T and slowly make sure your knees are together and your feet are together, like you're consciously pulling them towards each other. We're going to lower our knees over to the left side, but bring your knees down to the mat. Keep your feet lifted off the mat. And go ahead and relax here for one slow, deep breath. And with control, lift your legs back to center. And same thing on the right side. We're going to lower our knees down towards the mat, keeping our feet lifted off the ground. Try to keep that left shoulder rooted down on the mat. And lift your feet back up to center. One more time, lower your knees down, keeping your feet off the mat to the left side. Try to root down through that right shoulder. And engaging your core, bring your knees back to center. One last time, drop your knees over towards the right side. And lift your knees back to center. Hug both knees into your chest. Maybe rock side to side. And plant both feet on the mat. Bring your hands by your hips. Root down through the soles of your feet. Make sure your ankles are in line with your knees. Slowly lift your hips up towards the sky. Squeeze your glutes. Interlace your fingers, walk your shoulder blades together, and come into bridge pose. Make sure your neck is long and relaxed. Take a few slow, deep breaths here. And release your hands, walk your shoulders out, and slowly lower down one vertebrae at a time, bringing your hips down last. And just take a moment to let that settle in. Pause here. And we're going to do one more bridge. You have the option to follow along with me and do what we just did, or I invite you to take any other variation of bridge or wheel that you feel will serve you today. So prepare for that, whatever you choose. If you're following me, ground down through the soles of your feet. Slowly start to lift your hips up towards the ceiling. Squeeze your glutes. Interlace your fingers, walk your shoulder blades together. Make sure your neck is nice and long. Stay with me for a few slow, deep breaths. And bring your hands out to the side, walk your shoulders out, slowly lower all the way down to the mat. Hug both knees into your chest. Maybe rock side to side if that feels good. And stretch both feet up towards the sky. Bend your left knee to a 90-degree angle. Bring your right ankle over your left knee. Flexing your right foot, reach around, grab for the back of your left hamstring or your shin. Come into reclined pigeon. Just take a few moments to settle in here. Feel the stretch in your right outer hip. Try to soften in. Take one more deep inhale here. And on your exhale, release your legs and extend both feet up towards the sky. Bend your right knee, cross your left ankle over your right. Reach around, clasp your hands behind your right hamstring or your shin. Come in to recline figure 4. Soften into the stretch in your left hip. Stay here for 2 more slow, deep breaths. And release your legs. Hug both knees into your chest. And extend both feet up towards the sky. Bring your hands down by your hips. You have the option to stay here and legs up the wall, or you can take any inversion you would like at this time. Maybe come into plow, maybe come into shoulder stand. Just take a few moments to feel gravity working on your body. Relax in. Wherever you are, we're here for 5 more slow, deep breaths. And come out of whatever inversion you're in and hug both knees into your chest. Maybe rock side to side. Maybe reach for the outside edge of your hamstrings or your feet, coming into happy baby. If there's any asana you would like to do to complete your practice today, I invite you to do so now. And when you're ready, make your way into Shavasana. Bring your feet out wide. Move any flesh that is in your way, your sits bones contacting your mat. Flip your palms up. Close your eyes. Just start to assess how you feel. Do you notice any changes since the beginning of practice? Try to soften into the mat, letting go entirely, relaxing every part of your body into the mat. slowly start to deepen your breath. Maybe start to invite movement into your fingers and your toes. And maybe your wrists and your ankles. Maybe stretch your arms overhead, stretch out through your feet, coming into a big morning stretch. And when you're ready, plant both feet on the mat, knees pointing towards the sky. Slowly roll over to your right side. Maybe pause here for a few more slow, deep breaths. And make your way up to a seated position. You can close your eyes and bring your hands to heart center. Take a moment to tune in with yourself, giving gratitude to yourself for showing up, practicing, taking time to connect with your breath and your body. Yoga teaches us how to come home in ourselves, feel at peace and ease at the core of our center. Thank you for sharing your practice with me. The light in me sees and honors the light in each one of you. Namaste.